I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Sarah for about 6 years now. We met in our early 20s, got engaged pretty fast, and after a couple of years, tied the knot. Everything seemed fine at first, typical ups and downs, but we loved each other, or so I thought. We had our routines, work, weekends, occasional nights out, and of course, the usual arguments about money, her mood swings, and the way she always had to be right about everything. Looking back, I guess the signs were there, but I was too blind or maybe just too comfortable to notice. She always had this attitude, bitchy when she didn't get her way, quick to dismiss my feelings, and she loved to lie. The lying part was always subtle but persistent. She'd tell me she was working late when she was really at her friend's house, or she'd say she went shopping but I'd find receipts from another store later that didn't match her story. Nothing huge, but enough to make me wonder if she was hiding something. The last few months, though, everything changed. She started acting distant. She'd cancel plans last minute, come home late without explanation, and I noticed her phone was glued to her hand more than it used to be. She'd get defensive when I asked about her day or about her whereabouts. There was this new edge to her tone, snippy, dismissive, almost like she hated having to explain herself. I figured maybe she was tired or stressed, but deep down I felt there was more going on. I just didn't have the proof yet, so I kept quiet and tried to give her space. And then the other day I found out everything. It hit me like a freight train. I was cleaning up the house, something I do on Sundays, when I noticed her phone lying on the kitchen table. Nothing unusual there, she's always leaving her phone around, but I saw a message preview pop up. It was from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated for a second, but my curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked her phone. What I saw made my stomach drop. There was a string of messages, flirty and intimate, talking about meeting up, sneaking around. I saw her talking about the priest and how she couldn't wait to see him again. That's when it hit me. She was having an affair with our parish priest, the same guy who was counseling us for marriage, who we both trusted, who we both looked up to. I remember feeling numb at first, then the anger bubbled up so fast I thought I might lose it. How could she do this? How could she cheat on me, and with someone who was supposed to be guiding us spiritually? I know I shouldn't have looked further, but I couldn't stop myself. I found pictures of them together, her in places she shouldn't have been, him looking all too comfortable in her company. It wasn't just sex, it was betrayal on every level. My mind replayed every argument, every suspicious glance, and I realized she'd been lying to my face for months. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly, just broken. I didn't confront her that night. I needed time to think, to breathe. But I knew I had to face her. I had to hear her lie her way out of this, and I knew she would try. Sarah's the kind of person who can lie with a smile on her face and make you doubt your own eyes. I was scared of what her reaction would be, but I also knew I couldn't go on living like this, doubting everything, feeling like I was losing my mind. Today I'm sitting here trying to gather my thoughts. I want to be clear, this isn't just some petty revenge story. It's about real betrayal, the kind that cuts deep and leaves scars. I've always believed in honesty, in trust, and I never thought I'd have to deal with something this brutal. I'm angry, yes. Heartbroken, definitely. But part of me is also furious, furious at her, furious at myself for not noticing sooner, and furious at the priest who was supposed to be a man of God but turned out to be just another piece of scum. I don't know what's next. I don't even know if I want to stay or go. I do know that I can't keep pretending like everything's okay anymore. I'm tired of the lies, tired of feeling like I'm walking on eggshells. Whatever happens, I need to figure out how to move forward from this mess, whether that's alone or somehow trying to salvage what's left. But right now I'm just trying to breathe and make sense of what I've uncovered. After I found everything, I went quiet for a while. I just sat there, staring at her messages, trying to process what I was reading. My hands were trembling, my stomach felt like it was in a vice, and my head was spinning. I kept asking myself, how could I have missed it? How did I not see the signs? And more than anything, I was furious. Furious at her, furious at him, and honestly furious at myself for being so blind for so long. I didn't want to wake her up that night. I knew she'd come home late. She always tried to sneak in quietly after her late shift, as she called it. But I couldn't keep holding this all inside. I had to confront her, and I had to do it on my terms. So I waited until she was asleep, then quietly grabbed her phone again. I needed to see if she'd left any traces of her lies, any slip-ups she might have missed. I wasn't planning to expose her just yet, but I wanted to gather all the evidence I could, just in case. The next morning, I woke up early, feeling sick and anxious. I brewed coffee, knowing I had to face her eventually. She was already up and bouncing around the house with her usual bitchy attitude, snapping at me, throwing her sarcastic remarks. I could see right through her act. She was trying to act normal, like nothing had changed. But I wasn't buying it. I was too raw from what I'd seen. I kept my voice steady and asked her if she wanted to talk. Her reaction was classic Sarah, defensive, dismissive, and with a tone that made me want to punch her in the face. She rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, so now you're spying on me? Seriously, Mike, this is what you've come to. I work hard, I need some time to myself, and I'm not going to sit here and be accused of cheating every 5 minutes." I looked at her dead serious and said, "I know what I saw, Sarah. I saw your messages. I saw what you've been doing. And I know about the affair with Father Paul." The moment I said it, her face contorted, like I'd slapped her. She started lying right away, classic Sarah. "That's not what you think. You're crazy. You're just jealous, or maybe you're imagining things. I can't believe you're accusing me of something like this." I lost my patience. I told her she could lie all she wanted, but I had the evidence, that I'd seen enough. And at that point, she flipped out, started crying and throwing a tantrum, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was insecure. She said I was just jealous of her happiness with him, that she deserved some excitement after years of boring marriage, that she was just talking and nothing really happened. She kept repeating that line like it was some kind of magic shield that could erase what I saw, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw her true face, bitchy, manipulative, and willing to lie her way out of anything. I felt disgusted. The worst part was how good she was at convincing herself that she was right, that she hadn't done anything wrong, that she was the victim in all this. I knew she was full of shit, but I also knew I couldn't just yell at her and walk away. I had to think clearly, figure out what I was going to do next. The emotional impact hit me hard. This was betrayal, not just of our marriage, but of everything I thought we stood for. I felt so hurt, so angry, but also a strange sense of emptiness. All those years I spent loving her, trusting her, and she was out there, sneaking around with our priest. Isn't that just insane? The man who was supposed to help us find spiritual guidance was actually the one she betrayed me with. It made me question everything about faith, trust, and the people we're supposed to believe in. How could someone do that? How could she lie so effortlessly, so coldly? I remember feeling so overwhelmed I almost couldn't breathe. It was like my world was crashing down around me. I started shaking, part anger, part sadness. I wanted to scream at her, call her every name in the book, but I held back. I knew I had to stay calm, at least for now. Inside, I was already planning how I'd respond, what I'd say next. I didn't want to blow up and say something I'd regret, but I also knew I couldn't just sit there and accept her lies anymore. That day, I decided I was done being the naive husband in the story. This wasn't a mistake or an argument. This was betrayal on a level I never expected. And I knew I had to take control somehow, even if it meant cutting her out for good. I needed to figure out if there was any way to salvage this, or if I was better off walking away. But right now, all I could do was sit with this crushing realization and brace myself for what was coming next. After that morning, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, trying to piece together how everything had unraveled so fast. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible, especially because it involved the man who was supposed to be a spiritual guide, Father Paul, the priest who married us, who counseled us through tough times, who I'd always respected. That made it all worse. It wasn't just some affair. It was an absolute slap in the face to everything I believed in. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time with a clear plan. I wanted her to admit the truth, no more lies, no more bullshit. I needed to hear her say it herself, exactly what she'd been doing with whom and how long this was going on. The thought of her trying to deny everything again made my blood boil. I set a time to talk when she was supposed to be home from work, hoping she might crack under the pressure. When she arrived, she looked edgy nervous. She knew I wasn't fooling around anymore. I kept my voice steady but firm. "Sarah, I need to hear the truth from you. I saw the messages. I know about you and Father Paul." Her face went pale for a second, then she snapped right back into her usual bitchy attitude. "Oh, come on, Mike. You're overreacting. That's just some stupid message, nothing serious. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." She crossed her arms like she was defending herself against a minor inconvenience. I wasn't buying that. I told her I had proof, screenshots, conversations, and she couldn't lie her way out of it. But she kept denying, twisting her words, trying to turn it around on me. "You're just jealous." "Yeah, I talk to him sometimes because he's supposed to help us. It's not a big deal. You're just insecure because you're afraid of losing me." She spat that out like it was some kind of truth bomb, but I saw right through her. She was just good at twisting everything to her advantage. The thing is, I knew her mood swings, her lies, her bitchiness. They all had a pattern. She'd get defensive, lash out, and then try to manipulate her way out of it. That's exactly what she was doing now. I could see her trying to guilt-trip me to make me doubt myself, but I refused to let her. I told her I wasn't stupid, that I knew what she was up to, and if she wanted to keep lying, she could go ahead. But I wasn't going to be stupid enough to buy it anymore. The emotional toll was starting to hit me hard. That mixture of anger, sadness, and disappointment was overwhelming. I felt betrayed not just by her, but by the entire idea of what our marriage was supposed to be. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? And then turn around and blame me for being insecure. It was like she didn't care about how much she hurt me, how much she humiliated me in front of everyone. She was just acting like the victim, like I was the crazy one for suspecting her. I remember standing there looking at her, feeling like I was losing my mind. The woman I married, the woman I trusted, was out there sneaking around with a man who was supposed to be a spiritual leader. That's beyond betrayal. It's outright disgusting. My mind kept replaying every moment, every sign I missed, every time I dismissed something that seemed off. I felt sick, almost like I was going to throw up. It was pure rage mixed with heartbreak, but I also knew I had to stay calm. I didn't want to say something I'd regret, even if every part of me wanted to scream at her, call her every name in the book, and tell her exactly what I thought about her. Instead, I told her she needed to leave. I couldn't have her in the house anymore. I needed space, time to think. I told her to pack her things and stay somewhere else, at least until I figured out what I wanted to do. Her reaction was classic Sarah. She threw a fit, crying, yelling, calling me names, said I was overreacting, that I was crazy, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. She told me I was just insecure and jealous, that she loved me and only me, and that I was ruining everything. But I saw right through her fake tears and her crocodile sobs. I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I wanted the truth, and I wanted her to leave until she could be honest with me. That night I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling numb. I was angry at her, furious at Father Paul, and devastated inside. I kept asking myself how I'd let it come to this. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about trust and respect. Things I thought we had, things I thought she felt too, but she proved me wrong. She proved she was willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate her way out of this mess, just to save her own skin. I realized I had to decide what was best for me. Could I forgive her? Could I move past this? Deep down, I knew I shouldn't, but part of me still wanted to believe there was some way to fix this. Another part wanted to walk away and never look back. Whatever I ended up doing, I knew my life would never be the same. And honestly, I wasn't sure I was ready for what was coming next. The next few days were like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I kept going over everything in my mind, her lies, her sneaking around, the betrayal with Father Paul. I'd catch myself staring at her things, wondering how she could be so cold, so manipulative. It was like her behavior had been a mask all along, and now the mask was ripped off, revealing someone I didn't even recognize. I knew I had to do something concrete. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, questioning every memory, every moment. So I decided to start gathering more evidence. I didn't trust her to tell the truth, not anymore. I went through her phone again, looking for any other messages, emails, or notes that might prove she'd been lying about the extent of her affair. I also checked her social media accounts, her banking, anything that could give me clarity on her recent activities. In the process, I found even more proof. She'd been seeing the priest for months, secret meetings, late-night texts, even plans to meet up outside the church. She lied about everything, and I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. It made me angry at myself because I kept wanting to believe her, to give her the benefit of the doubt, even when I had a gut feeling. I felt stupid for trusting her so much, and so betrayed that I almost couldn't breathe. That evening, I decided I had to confront her again, but this time with everything laid out plain and clear. I needed her to face the facts, her lies, her manipulation, her betrayal. I called her that afternoon and told her to come over so we could talk. When she arrived, she was already wearing that bitchy, dismissive look, like she'd been preparing to fight me. I started by showing her the messages, the photos, the proof I'd gathered. I laid it all out, piece by piece. Her face turned red with anger. She started yelling, denying everything, claiming it was all a misunderstanding or that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She said I was just jealous and insecure, again trying to flip the script and make me feel like I was the one at fault. She even accused me of stalking her, which was such a ridiculous lie I almost laughed. But I wasn't about to let her manipulate her way out this time. I told her, "Look, Sarah, I know exactly what you've been doing. I've seen the proof. You're lying right now, but it doesn't change what's real. You've been having an affair with a priest, someone who was supposed to be helping us, guiding us. How could you do that? How could you cheat on me with someone I trusted?" She started crying again, but this time it felt empty. Like her tears weren't genuine. They were just tears for herself, for her reputation, for her ability to manipulate the situation. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never cheat, that I was just being paranoid. I told her she could keep lying, but I knew the truth now and I wasn't going to ignore it. At that moment, I felt a surge of everything I'd been holding inside. Anger, disappointment, heartbreak piled into one big, destructive wave. I looked her dead in the eyes and told her she needed to leave. I said I wouldn't tolerate her lying anymore, I wouldn't be a part of her game. If she wanted to keep pretending she was innocent, that was her choice, but I couldn't keep living with her. She yelled, accused me of being controlling and unreasonable, but I just stood there, calm but firm. I told her she had to go, that I couldn't trust her anymore, and that I was done. I said I needed time to think about everything, about whether this marriage could be salvaged or if I was better off walking away. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, shrieking that I was ruining everything and that she'd never stop fighting for us. That night, I was left alone in the silence of the house. It was almost worse than the betrayal itself, this void, this emptiness where she used to be. I felt like I'd lost part of myself, like I'd been punched so hard I couldn't stand. I kept replaying her lies, her tears, her voice, everything she'd said and done. And I kept asking myself, was this the end of us? Could I forgive her? Could I move past this? Part of me wanted to believe in second chances, but another part knew that trust, once broken, was almost impossible to rebuild. I felt so conflicted I didn't know which way was up. I just knew that I couldn't stay in this toxic situation anymore, not after everything I discovered. I needed to figure out whether I could find a way to heal or if I had to start over. Whatever I decide, I've learned one thing: I'll never trust her the same way again. And I'll never forget what I saw, her betrayal with that priest, the man who was supposed to be a figure of faith but turned out to be just another scumbag. That's the part that hurts the most. It's not just about the cheating, it's about the complete loss of faith in someone I loved and trusted. And I don't know if I can come back from that. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever faced. I spent most of my time alone, trying to process everything: the betrayal, the lies, the sense of utter defeat. I kept asking myself if I should try to salvage what was left or just walk away completely. Honestly, it was a constant battle between hope and despair. Every time I thought about her, I felt this huge wave of anger but also a deep, aching sadness. I never thought I'd be here, feeling this broken over someone I loved so much. I made the decision to give myself some space. I couldn't keep living in the same house with her, not until I figured out what I really wanted. I found a nearby motel and moved out for a few days, just enough to clear my head. I needed to get away from her, from the house, from the memories of what we had. I wanted to think rationally, without her bitchy attitude and lies clouding my judgment. It was the hardest thing I ever did, walking away from everything I'd built with her. During those days, I reached out to a few close friends, guys I trusted, to get some perspective. One of them told me to think about what I really wanted, whether I could forgive her, whether I could ever trust her again. Another told me to consider whether this marriage was worth fighting for after such a betrayal. But deep down, I knew the answer wasn't simple. I loved her, but I also hated her for what she'd done. It felt like my heart was torn in two. While I was away, I kept replaying everything. The moment I found out, her sneaky lies, her manipulative crying, her accusations. I now saw her for what she was. A woman who could lie effortlessly, who could betray her vows with a man she was supposed to trust, and who clearly didn't give a damn about my feelings. That realization was brutal. I'd trusted her with my life, my future, my faith, and she'd thrown it all away for a secret affair with a man who was supposed to be a man of God. I also thought about the priest, Father Paul, the same man who was supposed to be guiding us spiritually. I couldn't believe he'd stooped so low. I'd trusted him too, once. I remember thinking how ironic it was that someone like him, who was supposed to be a figure of morality and faith, was out there sneaking around with my wife. It made me question everything I'd ever believed about that church, that community, about the people I looked up to. But at the same time, I knew I had to focus on myself now. I couldn't keep torturing myself over what she did. I needed to take control of my life again, decide what was best for my future, whether that meant fighting for us or walking away for good. I spent hours journaling, trying to make sense of my feelings. Sometimes I'd cry, sometimes I'd rage. It was like an emotional roller coaster that I couldn't get off. Eventually, I decided to confront her again, even if just to hear her say it outright, that she was done lying. I reached out and asked her to meet. She came over, her eyes already doing that fake, bitchy smirk. She thought she was going to manipulate her way out of it again, I could see that. But I was done playing her game. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore. I laid it all out clearly. I knew about her affair, I knew about her lies, and I was tired of being played for a fool. She tried her usual tactics, denying, crying crocodile tears, flipping it around to make me the bad guy. She insisted she didn't do anything wrong, that I was just paranoid. I told her I had the proof, that I wasn't stupid anymore, that her tears and fake apologies didn't mean shit to me. I told her she needed to understand the gravity of what she'd done, and that she'd broken something in me that might never be healed. That's when something inside me snapped. I looked her in the eyes and told her it was over, that she needed to leave, that I couldn't keep pretending she was innocent after everything I'd seen. I said I'd give her a chance to pack her things and stay somewhere else until I was ready to decide what to do. Her face twisted with anger and frustration. She yelled, accused me of being controlling, and threatened to fight me for custody of the house or whatever she thought she could manipulate. But I didn't care. I knew I had to stand firm. As she stormed out that night, I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief that I finally took control, that I finally stood up for myself. But dread because I knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one I hadn't bargained for. I was alone now, facing the reality that the woman I loved was capable of such betrayal, and that I might never get that trust back. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. Maybe it was time to start over, to rebuild my life without her, to find out who I really was outside of this mess. Deep down, I knew I deserved better, that I was worth more than someone who could lie and cheat so easily. I didn't have answers yet, but I knew I couldn't keep living in the shadows of her lies. The path forward was uncertain, but I was ready to face whatever came next. The days turned into weeks, and I found myself in a strange new space, neither fully healed nor completely broken. I kept busy, sorting through everything, trying to piece my life back together. The house felt emptier without her there, and honestly, I didn't miss her much. What I did miss was the illusion of stability, the comfort of trusting someone I thought loved me. That illusion shattered the day I found those messages. And now all I had was this raw, painful truth. I finally decided to see a counselor, not because I wanted to fix the marriage. I knew that ship had sailed, but because I needed to understand my feelings, get some clarity, and heal from the betrayal. Talking to someone impartial helped me unload a lot of my pent-up anger and sadness. It also made me realize how deeply I'd been betrayed not just by Sarah, but by the entire situation. The priest, the church, the community I once trusted, they all let me down in ways I hadn't expected. I made a conscious choice to cut ties with her. I changed the locks, cleaned out what little I kept at our place, and started to rebuild my life from scratch. I took up new hobbies, started working out more, and reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with. I even began to see a new woman, someone who treats me with respect, who values honesty, and who makes me feel like I'm worth something. It's not perfect. I still get angry sometimes, still replay that betrayal in my mind, but I know I'm moving forward. Looking back, I see how naive I was, how much I trusted blindly. But I also see something else, how strong I am for surviving this, how I refuse to stay in a toxic, dishonest relationship just because I was afraid of being alone. I learned that sometimes the hardest thing to do is walk away from what's familiar, especially when that familiarity is built on lies and betrayal. But I also learned that life goes on, and sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself again. The biggest lesson I take away from this is that no matter how much you love someone, you can't force trust or respect. If those things are broken, they're almost impossible to repair, especially when lies and betrayal are involved. I've come to accept that not every marriage can be saved, and that's okay. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to cut your losses, walk away, and find your own happiness again. I don't harbor any illusions about her anymore. That woman, the one who lied, cheated, and manipulated, she's a stranger to me now. I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, but I know I won't be part of her story anymore. I've learned that I'm better off alone than in a relationship built on lies. And honestly, that's a hard lesson, but one I'm grateful for. So, if there's any advice I can give to anyone reading this, who might be going through something similar, is to trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags, don't justify someone's bad behavior, and don't let guilt or fear keep you in a toxic situation. Your happiness and well-being matter more than anyone's lies. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, even if it hurts. Because in the end, you're the one who has to live with yourself, and you deserve peace, honesty, and respect.